Okay. So today we are going to start with the development. See, let's first of all understand. So we completed this admin module. Admin sometimes is also called as configuration, and the coding part of the Salesforce is generally called as customization. So what we have completed so far is something called as configuration. Configuration where there was no coding. Now this configuration, whatever we have studied so far, I mean, things like your the automation tools such as workflows and the process builder, and the analytics part, including your reports and the dashboard, and the concept of relationship also we have covered. Then we have understood, I mean, the basics of the Salesforce and the basic about everything, like what exactly is the object, and then how to create the objects, what are the different types of objects, standard and the custom. Then we started like how to create the applications, custom applications, and everything, whatever we have learned so far. So it was all that we have done with the steps of configuration without coding. Now, whatever we have done, whatever we have learned, whatever we have done so far is something, it is also known as declarative customization. So declarative customization is as good as your configuration, where there was no coding. Now let's discuss what are the benefits of these things. I mean, whatever we have learned so far without writing the code, we have learned like how to create the custom applications, like how to create the objects, how to create the relationships, and how to create the reports, dashboard, how to deal with the concept of securities, how to create the users, how to manage the user, and we have learned so many things. So whatever we have learned so far, the technical name for this in the Salesforce, either it is called as configuration or sometimes it is also called as declarative customization. So these are one and same thing. These are one and same thing. So let's discuss what was the benefit of having we learning all these declarative customization features. First of all, like it doesn't require any technical skills. That means if you even don't know any programming, if you have not written any single line of the code into your life, then it's still you were being able to do the things whatever being required. So because there were no coding involved, whatever you set up over there, whatever you have learned over there were no coding required. Even for creating the formulas also, we were not writing any codes. We were able to create the validation rules. We were able to create the formula fields also. So whatever we have done there where it doesn't require anybody to be have technically skilled on some of the languages. It's something like that. So you don't actually require to have a programming knowledge to understand the concepts of declarative customizations. So this was one of the benefit. The second is like it reduces your overall, it reduces your overall development time. Because see, if you start coding something, then for sure you will require to go with the logic. You will require to understand the logic, build up the logic, and then you should design the coding for that. You should design the programming for that. So if you go with development of something, if you go with the coding part, it will take more amount of time. And if you remember, if we set up some of the automation rules, like there were few of the topics we have learned that like if I for example, if I ask you one question, okay, what are the different ways you could make a field to be mandatory? So this was one of the interview question also. So we have learned 2 to 3 4 different ways. If I wanted to make a field mandatory at the time of field creation, there is a required checkbox. You can click that. This was the first way. The second way was like page layout customization. You could make this field mandatory with the page layout customization. The third was like you could use the validation rules to make a field to be mandatory. And then next was like you could use triggers for that. You could write down triggers. You could write down. I mean, the next was with the help of visual force page also. So these are 4 to 5 different ways we could make a field mandatory. But then if you do the same thing with the coding, if you write a trigger for same, If you wanted to make a field mandatory, then you could do it at the time of creation or with the help of page layout customization, and then with the help of validation tools also. These are three what? These are three declarative customization features. These are some non-coding features. But I wanted to do same thing with the help of triggers. We are going to write that, when we start the trigger. So we will be writing that triggers which will make some of the fields to be mandatory. Then you will understand, that time you will yourself will differentiate. Okay, if I do the same thing with the declarative customization, it is very, very, it is actually, it doesn't take a lot of the time. And because in that case, programming efforts were not required. So if you do the same thing with the page layout customization or with the validation rule, it will take very, very less amount of time. But if you write the code for that, if you write the triggers for that, so it's definitely going to take some steps of programming. It will take more time in that case. So this is also one of the advantage, I could say, that if you go with the declarative customization, it reduces the time. Then it reduces the budget also. Why? In terms of hours, what we invest of doing in the one job. For example, if there is a task, and if I complete that task without writing a code, so obviously, it takes less amount of the time. If it takes less amount of time, the overall billing will be less, because in the IT we usually pay in terms of hour. I mean, what were the working hours for that? So if you go with the same concept, if you develop the same thing with the programming, or rather if there's another thing which we develop with the programming, so it's going to take more hours in the programming. So that will increase the budget of the client as well as for the company also. So this is also one of the benefit, in the Salesforce, 30, 40, 50% of the development goes with declarative customization. That is one of the benefit with the Salesforce. Even without writing the code, people used to develop at least 60 to 40% of the project. So that means for that particular portion of your project, it will actually reduce the overall budget of the client. That is why people also migrating towards the Salesforce. People why they are converting, why they are migrating from the existing technology to the Salesforce. Why? Because if there's an application, if there's an task, and if it is done fully with the coding, I mean, if there's a programming language that develop the same application with writing codes. One second. So if we are developing an application and it requires from the beginning to end, it requires only and only programming. So that definitely will require more amount of budget. But when somebody comes to the Salesforce, and if you develop an application with the Salesforce, so what really is going to happen is 30 to 40% development will be done with the declarative customization without writing a code. So that actually reduces the budget. That actually reduces the budget. So this is one of the reason, why people are migrating towards the Salesforce. I mean, this is one of the reason. Then obviously it makes the application development faster. It reduces the complexity of the application, and it improves the application performance, everything. So basically there are, so many advantages with the declarative customization. And if we go with the programmatic customization, where there's coding is involved, so that is what we are going to start, something called as programmatic customization or simply customization, where we are going to write down the programs using two programming languages, Apex and the Visual Force programming language. So you are going to understand what is, what can be created with the Visual Force and what can be written with the Apex programming. That is what you are going to learn over here. One second, guys. Yes. So when we when we develop something with the coding, that means when we are using this programmatic customizations, so let's understand few things related to this. So first of all, the developer should have the programming knowledge. Here we could say that if someone is even a non-technical person and he started Like most of the, you probably, there could be, even in your class also, there could be few people, those who are from non-coding background, right? Those who could be non-CSE or non-IT background, still you would be able to do the things whatever you have learned so far. Because here having a programming knowledge was not actually required. But when we start developing something, we should definitely have some knowledge. So here I could say that the developer should have a programming knowledge. Then what kind of programming you must aware of two languages, and that is Apex and the Visual Force. That is what we are going to learn. Then see, if we have so many benefits over here, if we have so many benefits over here, then why we actually moving towards the next type of customization? So the one reason for this, why we are going forward and learning this Apex programming, why we are going forward and learning Visual Force programming, I mean, why at all we are moving towards the programmatic customization is like, if we wanted to develop the certain complicated functionalities, because we are going to learn, then we are going to learn what are the limitations, what are the drawbacks, or not drawbacks, but what are the limitations of this declarative customization. So if there is a functionality we wanted to develop, which actually requires you to go and think beyond this, beyond the declarative customization, there is some complicated functionality, then we should have a knowledge of programming language. Then we should go and solve it with the help of programmatic customization. So if we are developing a certain kind of complicated functionalities, then you should go with the programmatic customization. Then if you wanted to make a certain out of the box feature you should wanted to implement, you wanted to develop your own customized user interfaces, I mean, whatever the Salesforce has given you, apart from that, if you wanted to do certain changes over there, example, if this is the default interface of Salesforce, for example, and if you wanted to change this, for example, I have an object, for example, candidate. If I launch the candidate object, this is what the interface, I see. I mean, this is tabs home page. And if I go and click the new, then this is what the color over here. So if I, wanted to think beyond this point, if I wanted to change this functionality, then how could I do that? How could I do that? So that is where, you should learn the programming. This is where you should learn the programming. I'll show you one example for this. Let me show you that. See, yes. If I go to account over here, and if I click on new account, see, this is the page, this, whenever you go to the account home tab, you go to the accounts tab and you click onto the new button. So this is what the page, this is the default accounts page, right? This comes onto the screen, and you are supposed to enter the data and then you save it. One account record is going to be saved. Now, for example, I wanted to have a functionality which is actually beyond this point. Let me show you that. Here, if I click on the account, I mean, if I click on the account, the same page appears. But what happens when I click on this new button? See, what the difference between understanding, why we require the customization, why we wanted to go for the Visual Force page. See, how does it looks like? What happens when you click onto new? Here, this is the default functionality of Salesforce. When you click the new button, this form appears, right? This form appears. But here, according to the project requirement, I actually have make certain changes over here. I wanted, because I was having, 5 different types of accounts, companies, communities, something like that. And I wanted to enter the provision, whenever someone wants to enter a new account record, what should be the type of account? That is why I actually have modified this page. And then, if you click on the company, so the page related to the company will be opening. See, this is a different kind of interface. Although we are onto the account object, but see, this is a different kind of interface, right? This is all related to this. If I click on something else, for example, I click on this people prop, so a different kind of form is going to be appeared. So that is what I was saying. If we wanted to customize the user interface, if we wanted to build up a user interface according to our requirement, where you couldn't go with the default, this will be default ye aapka. But if this doesn't suit to your requirement, if it doesn't matches to your requirement, you certainly require to change the user interface. There you should learn the programming. This is something a Visual Force page. ये जो है ना, ये आपको दिख रहा है, this is something a Visual Force page. See, this is a Visual Force page. ये एक Visual Force page है. You are going to learn that. So we right now what we are discussing, okay, what could be the requirement of going and learn the programming. So whenever there is a requirement, we wanted to make certain changes according to the rather we wanted to customize the user interface as per our requirement. Then we should learn the programming, right? Then if you wanted to build up the complex functionalities, transactions flows, whatever, then also you require to go and learn the programming. So this was just a discussion to make you understand that you were onto this path right now. You completed your journey with the declarative customization. And there were so many different advantages. Salesforce is a kind of program, Salesforce is a kind of technology where 30 to 40% of the entire development part, it doesn't require us to code something. That is why there are so many different advantages with the Salesforce. It reduces the time, it reduces the budget, it reduces application development becomes faster. And the people, those who are even not so much technically strong, they are also being able to come in and develop the application into the Salesforce. At least the coding, when the coding is not involved. हाँ, अब coding आया तो यहाँ से developer का part शुरू होता है. But this is something which every admin can do this. So this is a beauty of Salesforce, that your 30 to 40% of actual project development goes without writing a single line of code. So there are so many different advantages with the declarative customization, right? Okay, चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. So let's understand. Okay, we completed this part of our Salesforce training. What are the limitations? What are the limitations of this whole declarative customization? And that motivates us to go beyond this and learn the programming. We must have a certain motivation. We must have a motivations to learn something new. So that is what I'm telling. कि चलो हम ये देख लेते कि whatever we have learned so far, what is the limitation in all those modules, and why at all I want you to learn the development part. So let's have a discussion on that also. So let's try to understand what are the limitations of this non-programming coding admin part, whatever. So the page layout customization. Okay, the page layout customization, that means we could arrange the field maximum into the 2 columns. Let me show you that. So if I go over here, here, I could see that these fields are arranged in the 2 columns. This is the first column and this is the second column, right? You also have created your own custom objects. You also have created custom objects like hiring manager and the positions and the candidate. There also we created so many different custom fields like this. But if I wanted to arrange the fields, there were, onto the page layout customization. If I go and edit the layout, so we have learned this, that if I try to create a new section over here, see, if I try to create a new section, that new section only have 2 columns, either 1 column or 2 column. But you cannot go beyond that. You cannot go beyond that. You cannot go and have 3 columns. You could not arrange the fields in 3 columns and the 4 or 5 columns. So that is what one of the limitation in the Salesforce. Declarative customization. If at all, if at all I wanted to arrange the fields in different columns, I could maximum arrange them in 2 columns, not more than that. That is what one of the drawback. That is one of the drawback. We have seen this. Okay, the fields of every object, whatever we created, we could maximum arrange the fields in the 2 different columns. This is first column, so this is second column. But in your, in the Salesforce, in the Visual Force programming, this is not the thing. For example, I wanted to arrange this in more than in 2 columns, for example. Somewhere I have this coding. Let me try to see that. One second, let me try to show you that. Companies, okay. Columns. Okay. Let me try to show you something. Okay. So see what happens. Now 3 columns. See, first column, second column, third column. I could arrange the fields in the 3 columns. We are going to learn that. If I wanted to arrange them into the 4 columns, let's see what happens. Let me show you that also. So here we have a flexibility. See, onto the user interface, you could arrange the field in 1 column or in 2 column or in 3 or in 4. That completely depends, how you wanted to arrange the fields. That is what the thing. If you wanted to arrange them in 2 columns, you could arrange them in 2, you could arrange them in 3, you could arrange them in 4. जैसा भी आपको यूजर इंटरफेस बनाना, नाउ सी देयर आर 2 कॉलम्स, तो दिस इज वन ऑफ द, यहाँ पर देयर इज नो सच प्रोविजन. Programmatic declarative customization, there is no such provision. You could maximum arrange the field in 2 columns, not more than that. This is one of the limitation. I could not say that this is a drawback. हाँ, इसको हम limitation बोल सकते हैं, because we cannot go beyond that point. If I wanted to insert fee, I mean, if I, client says कि हाँ आपको ये 2 कॉलम में नहीं 3 कॉलम में चाहिए, और अगर इस सेक्शन पे आपको 3 कॉलम चाहिए, ये सेक्शन पे 2 कॉलम चाहिए, I cannot do that. Section wise also, I couldn't create more than 2 columns, because there is a limitation. Whenever I try to insert a new section, maximum, I could arrange the fields either in 1 column or maximum into the 2 column. That's it, not more than that. So this is one of the drawback. But you see over here, when I design a visual force page, there's no such restriction on visual force page. You could go beyond 2 columns also. So this is one of the limitation that force us, if you wanted to customize a user interface, that should have the fields to be arranged in more than 2 columns. If you wanted to arrange the fields in 3 column and 4 column, that couldn't be happen with declarative customization. There is a restriction on that. But with programmatic customization, by using visual force programming, we could definitely do that. And that is what I just have showed you. I showed you this live example using visual force page. This is one of the user interface what I have developed. I could arrange these fields either in 2 columns, in 3, in 4, in 5, how many? I mean, as soon as it suits to the user interface, it looks good. Bedanga nahi dikhna chahiye bas. But then I don't have any restriction कि मेरे को कितने columns insert करना है, right? So this is one of the limitation. Let's talk about the second limitation. Tabs homepage. We cannot customize the tabs homepage. That is also one of the drawbacks. Let's discuss that also. If I go over here, if I go, for example, if I go to the account, this is what, whenever we click on any of the tab, for example, I click on account, I click on case, I click on contact. So that we have discussed long back, we have discussed whenever we click on any of the account, we are first for now, the first we are going to be landed on the tabs homepage. So this is what, this is complete a tab homepage, right? This is complete a tab homepage. And whenever you click on any of the tab, you click on account, you will be going to be landed on accounts home. You click on case, you will be going to land on the case home. You click on the contacts, you will going to land over here. Every time when you click, even with the custom objects also, whenever you click any of the tab, the first you are going to be landed on the tabs homepage. This is something called as tab homepage. Now I cannot edit this part. I cannot edit this part. This is what one of the drawback. This is one of the drawback. We cannot edit this part. We cannot change the home page of any of the tab. There's no such provision in the Salesforce. Agar hota to main aapko batata tha. Although we understand how to create some more options in the list view, hot rating customer, something like that. We understand this. I mean, how to create more options. Then, but if the client says us ki mere ko ye nahi chahiye, I don't want this. I just don't want it to have this. How could you remove that? Not possible. Not possible. If the client says us कि मेरे को यहाँ पे ये section नहीं चाहिए, I don't want this reports to be over here. I don't want tools to be over here. You cannot remove these components from this tab homepage. Why? Because Salesforce doesn't allow you. If you try to go and यहाँ पर देखो आपको edit layout नहीं दिख रहा है यहाँ पे. Onto this particular home tab, you have edit columns. You don't have layout option over. Layout कहाँ आता है जब आप record अंदर में जाते हो, edit page पे या detail page पे जाते हो, तब आपको layout का option आता है. यहाँ पर आप layout कर सकते हो. मतलब you could, ये जो आपकी related list होती है इसको हटा कर सकते हो आप. इसमें से जितनी चाहे उतनी ला सकते हो, हटा सकते हो. That you can do over here. आप fields को 1 column या 2 column maximum, जैसे 2 column में आप arrange कर सकते हो. But when I come to the home page of any of the tab, for example over here, did I find this option? No. That means I cannot change this page, I cannot change this page. I cannot change this page. But we are going to understand and how to design the home page also, according to our requirement. So this is one of the drawback of declarative customization, that the tab home page cannot be customized by default. There is no provision that you could customize the tab home page. आप अंदर में जाके कर सकते हो, detail layout कर सकते हो, edit page को कर सकते हो, but tab के home page को आप customize नहीं कर सकते. And that we could do again with the visual force programming. विजुअल फोर्स प्रोग्रामिंग के थ्रू हम वो कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, कैसे तो सीखने वाले आप। और भी कुछ चीजें समझिए आप, जैसे आप कलर्स नहीं चेंज कर सकते, फॉन्ट्स नहीं चेंज कर सकते। मतलब इफ आई कम टू दिस पेज, इफ आई कम टू दिस पेज, यहाँ पे ये जो कलर्स नजर आ रहे हैं, है ना, यहाँ पे, या फिर अंदर में चलूं, अगर मैं रिकॉर्ड लेवल पे भी जाता हूँ, तो यहाँ पे जो मुझे दिख रहा है, ये सब कलर या फिर फॉन्ट फील्ड्स के, ये नहीं चेंज कर सकते। वी कैन नॉट चेंज दिस होल। इसको कुछ बोल्ड करना है, नहीं कर सकते आप। ऐसा है, जो टैब का कलर होगा उसके साथ में ये कलर मैच होगा ऑटोमेटिकली, बट आप इसको भी अलग से चेंजेस नहीं कर सकते। ये फॉन्ट को आप, जैसे ये बोल्ड है तो ये इसको बोल्ड इटैलिक करना है, नहीं कर सकते आप। और दिस थिंग कैन बी डन ऑन विजुअल फोर्स प्रोग्रामिंग, बिकॉज विजुअल फोर्स जब हम पढ़ेंगे ना, तब मैं आपको बताऊंगी विजुअल फोर्स इज फुल्ली कंपैटिबल विद एचटीएमएल। तो अगर आपको एचटीएमएल आता है, यू कुड डू एनीथिंग इन द विजुअल फोर्स पेज। तो आप कुछ भी कर सकते हो एचटीएमएल के साथ विजुअल फोर्स पेज पे। आप टैब कलर दे सकते हो, फॉन्ट कलर दे सकते हो, फॉन्ट फेस दे सकते हो, फॉन्ट आप जो चाहे वो कर सकते हो ना। टैब पे जो सेक्शन है उनके कलर चेंजेस कर सकते हो। तो ये एक रिस्ट्रिक्शन है आपका प्रोग्रामेटिक डिक्लेरेटिव कस्टमाइजेशन, जिसको आप रिमूव करते हो प्रोग्राम्स के थ्रू, विजुअल फोर्स के थ्रू। एक और है डी डुप्लीकेशन प्रोसेस। चलिए एक और चीज समझिए आप। ऐसे तो देखिए काफी सारे ड्रॉबैक्स है, मतलब जरूरी नहीं कि 6 ही पॉइंट है। एक्चुअली 6 लिस्ट किए मैंने, बस एक आइडिया मिले हमको यहाँ पर, बिकॉज हमें ड्रॉबैक डिस्कस नहीं करना है, हमें हमें जस्ट कुछ मोटिवेशन चाहिए कि जिससे हमको ये समझे कि वाई वी एक्चुअली मूविंग टुवर्ड्स द लर्निंग ऑफ प्रोग्रामिंग, वाई वी आर लर्निंग द कंसेप्ट ऑफ अपेक्स एंड विजुअल फोर्स प्रोग्रामिंग। क्या आपको एक पता होना चाहिए कि इफ यू रिस्ट्रिक्ट योरसेल्फ टू एडमिन प्रोफाइल, तो व्हाट आर द थिंग्स दैट यू कैन नॉट डू, वो आपको पता चलना चाहिए। कि अगर आप सोच रहे हो कि ठीक है मैं प्रोग्रामिंग नहीं करता हूँ और मैं एज एन एडमिन ही अपनी प्रोफाइल को अप करता हूँ, एंड आई स्टार्ट माय जॉब विद द एडमिन प्रोफाइल ओनली, तो आपको एक आइडिया होना चाहिए कि व्हाट आर योर लिमिटेशन इन दैट क्लास। Although this declarative customization have so many different advantages, and this is the beauty of Salesforce, that the project always start with non-coding. Whenever we set up a project, 30-40% we don't require to code. हाँ, उसके आगे कोडिंग लगती है। तो कैसा है, व्हाट वी आर डिस्कसिंग कि इफ यू वांटेड टू रिस्ट्रिक्ट योरसेल्फ टू एडमिन, तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि कौन कौन सी चीजें जो है आप नहीं कर सकते। वो उनमें से कुछ बातें हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं अभी। जैसे मैंने अभी आपको ये बताया 2 कॉलम 3 कॉलम का कंसेप्ट, टैब के होम पेज का कंसेप्ट, ठीक है। टैब के बाद में फिर आप पेज लेआउट पे जाके आप कलर्स चेंज नहीं कर सकते, अलग अलग फॉन्ट्स नहीं डाल सकते। ऐसे एक पॉइंट और है, डी डुप्लीकेशन प्रोसेस। लेट मी शो यू समथिंग। नाउ एग्जांपल, if I go to, for example, candidate, ठीक है, one second, and I try to insert a new record, and I write down this Amir Arshi, some email ID amir@test.com, and let me go with any of the position, a VF programmer, some sort of PAN number. Okay, so let me try to save this record. So I created one of the record with the name Amir Arshi. Now see what happens, if I clone this and I save this, again one more record is created. What happens if I clone this and save it? Again one more record is created. That means if I go and find out, I have created 3 records of Amira with exact same details. This is, I could say that these are what, if this is the original record, these 2 are the duplicated records. So by default, Salesforce allow record duplications. So if, this happens with every object, this happens with every object. And there is no way to avoid this. Even if you try this to solve with the validation rule, it's not going to be happen. It's not going to be happen. Validation rule or formulas will not help you to avoid the duplication. I mean, to implement the deduplication. Deduplication का मतलब होता है duplication avoid करना. So by default, with the declarative customization, there is no such feature of Salesforce that help you to avoid the duplicated records. This is also one of the limitations. Every object do this. If you go to the account and if you try to create a new record, sample test account record number 1. Let me save this. one record is created. Okay. Now, if I go and create a new record, once again, a new record with the same detail, sample test record number 1. I create one more record with the same detail, same stored everywhere. For every object, by default, this is the functionality of Salesforce. You could store the records, in a duplicated manner. अब हम ऐसा नहीं बोलेंगे this is one of the drawbacks. See, हो सकता है कि कुछ business process में duplications allowed है, तो कुछ business process में duplication को avoid करना पड़ता है. That all differs between requirement to requirement, है ना. ये हम ऐसा कहीं नहीं बोल सकते कि ये गलत है. हो सकता है कि आप किसी ऐसे business process पे काम कर रहे हो where you should actually allow the records to be get duplicated. तो ठीक है, फिर this is the great functionality, this is the right functionality in that perspective. But now, for example, if there's a certain requirement where you should avoid this, you shouldn't allow the Salesforce to store the records with the same detail if already there is a record. Then how will you implement? Because this is something which is not possible over here. If you try to implement this with the validation rule, there's no such rule. There's no way to do that. In the validation rule, there's no such formula that this helps you out to implement the deduplication process. The only way to do this is to write down the triggers. Trigger is the only thing, trigger is the only thing that could help you out to implement the deduplication process. To understand this limitation. So if you restrict yourself to be admin, you should, for sure, you will not be able to restrict the duplication of record. But if you go beyond this point and you start learning the development part, you complete it with the triggers, then you will be able, you would be able to do this. You would be able to write down certain different kinds of logic, which will avoid, this kind of things to be get happen. The people will not be able to enter a same record, exactly same record with the same details and everything. That means you could implement a deduplication process by writing the triggers. But then if you wanted to write a trigger, you must go and learn the development part. So that is what the thing. Then if we have understood how to write down how to send the emails with the workflows and the process builder. Workflows have only 4 different actions. Your process builder have more than 4, probably 8 to 11 different operations workflow or process builder can do. So out of that 4 operations, what workflow can do, one operation was sending of the email alerts, right? But we understood like how to send the emails, but those email doesn't have any attachments. Those email doesn't have any attachment. There were no provision to send the email with attachment with the help of workflows and process builder. But the same thing you could do with the programming. There's a programming called as email programming. By using email programming, we could, dynamically attach some of the files with before sending the email, we could attach the files. File could be like your text, PDF, Word file, anything, image file also. So that is also one of the limitation. If you have understood this, I mean, we have learned this, email templates. There are 4 different types of email template. And after learning that, we started learning workflows and process builder. Then we understand like how to automatically send the emails with the process builder and the workflows. But then there was no provision that if you're sending an email, you couldn't attach any of the file. That is one of the drawback, right? That is one of the drawback or the other limitations. Then one more thing is like, if I'm trying to insert a record, if I'm trying to update or delete or anything, it could be done, it could be done only on one record at a time. For example, if this is the record of Amira, if I wanted to edit, I have this provision, I could edit one record at a time only. If I wanted to delete, I could delete this record at a time. Right? So in this operation, ये हमने उस वक्त भी discuss किया था जब हम data loaders पढ़ रहे थे. So if you go with this page layout way of inserting, editing, and something like that, then you can always perform the operation only on one record at a time. If you're inserting a new record, if you go and click this new button, you will be inserting one record at a time. If you're editing an existing record, you can open just one record at a time and then you can perform edit. If you're deleting a record, you could open the record and delete one record at a time. So everything, whatever you are doing, whether you are performing insert operation, update operation, delete operation, or rather undelete, undeleting means collecting it back from the recycle bin. This could be happen only with one record at a time. And this we have learned right when we were discussing data loader, if you remember. And then I told you कि ठीक है, अगर आपको bulk में करना है तो you need to go with data loader. But then what is the problem with data loader? Data loader is an on-premise tool. We actually require to install this. Data loader first of all requires to be get installed onto the local system. If this is your laptop, you first of all require to install data loader. Then only you could perform the operations in bulk. And moreover, data loader can only delete and hard delete. It cannot undelete. This is also one of the limitation of data loader. It could although insert, update, upsert record, but it cannot perform undelete operation. And this is something in on-premise tool. This is something in on-premise tool. We are dealing with cloud technology. That's why we should discuss with this. So this is also one of the drawback. Okay, if you wanted to perform any such DML operation, data manipulation language, then we should perform. If you are doing this from the page layout, you are able to perform the operation only on one record at a time. Whatever is the operation, you are inserting a record, one record will be inserted at a time. You are editing, one record will be edited. You are updating, editing and updating is same. Deleting or whatever you are doing, you do it only one record at a time. So what if you wanted to have multiple operations? I mean, if you wanted to insert multiple records, delete multiple records, then we have something in the programming called as DML programming, data manipulation language. So this actually motivates us to go beyond and learn DML. This is what I think. So these are, some of the drawbacks. These are some of the limitations with the declarative customization, what we have learned so far, non-coding. There are so many advantages associated with it, but yet there are few of the limitations also. So agar I know if we have certain requirement in our module, जो हमको उससे आगे बढ़ना है, जैसे आपको 2 से ज्यादा कॉलम्स चाहिए, आपको टैब के होम पेज को कस्टमाइज करना है, आपको अलग अलग थोड़ा सा अट्रैक्टिव यूजर इंटरफेस बनाना है, जहां पे यू एक्चुअली रिक्वायर टू हैव अ सर्टेन डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ फॉन्ट्स, टेक्स्ट कलर वगैरह वगैरह. आपको डुप्लीकेशन प्रोसेस जो है, मतलब डीडुप्लीकेशन प्रोसेस इंप्लीमेंट करनी है. यू वांटेड कि डेटा शुड बी यूनिक एंड इंटीग्रिटी शुड बी मेंटेन्ड. And you wanted to have, I mean, at the time of sending emails, we must attach something to that dynamically at the runtime. And we wanted to perform DML operations on multiple record at a time. So these are some of the good reasons, these are some of the good reasons that actually motivates you, that actually push you कि आप आगे जाओ, इसके आगे जाओ, and then start learning the development. तो ये है वो चीजें. These are the things, these are the things which actually motivates you to go beyond this, whatever you have learned so far, and then start learning the new concepts of programmatic customizations. Okay, chaliye. So if you have probably, if you guys are agree with this, let's, start with the next thing. And that is what exactly is the force.com platform. So this is something which this is not new to us. We understand this. Cloud mainly have, Salesforce mainly have all three kinds of cloud services: SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. As a part of SaaS service, we have discussed, Salesforce could offer you one of the application, one ready-made application for your business. As a part of PaaS, platform as a service, we develop a new application for our clients, right? And as a part of IaaS is something called as infrastructure as a service. So it mainly deals with the server spaces, and this whenever you create any of the organization, this organization will take some amount of memory from any of the server. Servers again are located in 3 to 4 different regions that we also know. Let's now discuss about what exactly is the PaaS. PaaS is something called as platform as a service. So as a part of PaaS service, as a part of PaaS service, Salesforce mainly offer you two things. One is force.com, the second is database.com. Now you know this, what is database.com? Database.com is a place where all your Salesforce data is being stored. Every record, inside every of the object, because these objects are actually tables inside the database. Here we call these to be object. Account is an object, case is also an object, contact is an object. But these are actually what? These are, account is a table into database.com. Case is also a table. Your candidate is also a table into database.com. And when this Amir Arshin record is created, that means one record, one row has been added into the table. So what is database.com? Database.com is that place of Salesforce where all Salesforce related data has been stored. All the data of every object, all the records of every object is being stored. Now let's understand what is force.com platform. See, it's really easy to say about database.com. When someone asks you what is a database.com, we could definitely say database.com is that data repository. It's a place, it's a server space where all your data of the Salesforce is being stored, of every object. Whatever you store inside an object, you have so many objects. And whatever the records are there into the objects, like these many records are there into the position object, all of them are stored into database.com. A hiring manager have these many objects, account have these many records, all of these records, all of these records, where all these 31 records are stored, they are into database.com. There's one table. What is the name of that table? Account. Your object name and table name is same. So it's really easy to say about database.com, but let's understand what is force.com platform, because we merely haven't discussed anything related to this. We just know that PaaS mainly have two things, force.com platform and database.com. database.com के बारे में तो भी डिस्कशन हुआ है हमारा, काफी मरतबा हुआ, बट इन force.com प्लेटफॉर्म क्या होता है, अभी उसके बारे में एक्चुअल डिस्कशन होगा. तो force.com प्लेटफॉर्म, what does word platform first of all signifies to us? Try to understand the fact. जैसे हम बच्चों को पढ़ाते हैं ना कि देखो आपको काइट की स्पेलिंग आती नहीं है तो आप पहले, जैसे कैट की स्पेलिंग नहीं आती तो CAT कैट है ना, तो इस तरह से अगर आप अलग अलग करते हो उसको तो आपको समझने में आसानी होगी. तो सेम वे force.com platform is what? It's a platform. First of all, what is force.com platform? It's a platform. Okay, now what does a platform means? What a platform provides? A platform provides you that environment you require to carry out your business process, to carry out the development. If you wanted to develop something new, you must have an environment, because as a developer, we should be sufficiently sound with all those tools which we require for to create something new. These are all resources. See, engineer without resource, without tool cannot do anything. And this is a fact for every branch engineer. If you're a mechanical engineer, you're automobile engineer, you're civil engineer, every time whenever we wanted to develop, we must have sufficient number of resources, we must have sufficient number of tools. Now we come to the software engineer part, here also we are trying to develop something new. We are trying to create application that should match to the client's requirement. And if we wanted to develop something, we must have that much of the resources, we must have that much of the tools with us. So the provider, the service provider which actually provide these all tools. Now this entire thing is called as, first of all, this entire thing is called as environment. Environment matlab वो सारे resources, वो सारे tools जो आपको लगते हैं, तो I could club them into a single word called as environment. Now the person who is actually providing us this environment, that is what the platform is. So platform kya hai? It's nothing, just a development environment. It's combinedly a collection of everything whatever you require to develop a new application, such as your programming languages, such as your compilers, such as your code debuggers, such as your runtime engines, everything whatever is required to carry out the development process is completely provided into the platform. So this is what now if someone asks you what exactly force.com platform, so we will say that it's a cloud-based platform. It's a cloud-based platform, because if you do the C programming, aapko install karna padega C compiler. If you do the C++ programming, again you will require to install the compiler onto your end. If you go with the Java programming, aapko Java development kit JDK install karna padega. If you go with the .NET, aapko .NET ka suite install karna padega. If you go with the Oracle, aapko Oracle install karna padega. But if you go with the Apex, if you go with the Visual Force programming, there is nothing that you wanted to install. आज तक जैसा काम किया है वैसे ही करना है. और मैं काफी पहले से ऐसा नहीं है कि आप पहली बार सुन रहे हो. ये मैं आपको डेवलपर कंसोल काफी पहले से दिखाता चला आया कि how will you write down the program? You are going to write down the program over here. Okay. Okay. So I created a class C. Whatever I'm going to write down over here. जो कुछ भी मैं यहाँ पे लिखूंगा, ठीक है, whatever I'm देखो, जब मैं इसे सेव करता हूँ, when I save this, first of all where I'm writing into a browser. ये ब्राउजर है, देखो ये एक ब्राउजर है. This is something which is not installed at my end. ये मेरे एंड पे इंस्टॉल नहीं है. This is a browser. जैसा हम आज तक करते हैं वैसा ही है. This you are accessing all these application from your this Google Chrome browser. Now this is also a browser. That means your development environment जहां पर आप टाइप कर रहे हो, this place is called as editor. इसको editor बोला जाता है. एडिटर वो प्रोग्राम है जो आपको अलाउ करता है आपके कीबोर्ड के साथ इंटरफेस करता है. ठीक है, अब जब ये प्रोग्राम मैंने टाइप किया, मैंने जब उसको सेव किया तो उसमें एरर्स आए. ठीक है, इसमें एरर्स आए. तो एरर्स जो आ रहे हैं मतलब ये कंपाइल हुआ है, तो ये कहाँ कंपाइल हुआ है? ये पूरा ऑनलाइन कंपाइल हुआ है. ये सब मैं दिखाने वाला. वी आर गोइंग टू हैव अ डिस्कशन. लेट मी शो यू दैट. वी आर गोइंग टू हैव अ डिस्कशन रिगार्डिंग दिस. When I started the programming, अभी तो मैं बेसिक पे चल रहा हूँ, बट मैं जब प्रोग्रामिंग पे लेके जाऊंगा ना, तब मैं आपको बताऊं कि हाउ डज एक्चुअली अपेक्स प्रोग्राम इज गोइंग टू बी एक्सिक्यूटेड. अपेक्स रन टाइम इंजन क्या होता है और कैसे काम करता है. हाउ यू डेवलप अ प्रोग्राम, व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन यू डेवलप अ प्रोग्राम, व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन यू सेव इट, how it goes to the server, then what does it means by compiler, what does it means by runtime engine, what does it means by database.com, what does it means by metadata repository. So everything we are going to have a discussion with this, so that you will understand how exactly program flows in Apex. अभी सिर्फ मैं एक जनरल आइडिया दे रहा हूं आपको. We are going to have a discussion regarding this, so don't worry. So whatever I'm typing over here, whatever I'm typing over here, I'm typing it onto the browser. Program compilation with the help of browser. Program execution with the help of browser. Everything is happening. Everything is happening over here with the help of a browser. Let me copy this message. Let me show you something. Okay. See, this is also one of the window. And what happens if I execute this? What happens if I execute this? See, one file has been generated. Okay. One file has been generated. Let me show you something. This is the output. This is my first program. You type the program within the browser. Program has written within the browser. Program has been executed within the browser. If program is having some error, it is located within the browser. Program executed without error within the browser, and the output of the program within the browser. Everything, we do it onto the cloud. That is what the difference between a normal programming and Apex programming. So Apex is a cloud-based programming, and you are going to understand everything. So don't worry about that. So when now second time when someone asks you, okay, what is a force.com? So we would say that force.com is actually a cloud-based platform. A cloud-based platform that offers us what? A development environment. Okay, if I am as a Salesforce developer, I require one of the environment where I could code something. So where I will going to write this all. So we are this particular is the force.com platform that will provide us that facility that whatever you wanted to create a new program, whatever you wanted to create an application with the help of programmatic customization, everything what you require editor, you require compiler, you require runtime engine, you require code debugger, you require loaders. There's so many different software that runs behind whenever you write down a code. These kind of softwares are called as system software, but you certainly don't require to install it onto your end. No, everything is available onto what? Cloud. Everything is available onto the cloud. And this is what the force.com platform is actually. Okay. So what we are going to learn is we are actually going to discuss with two programming languages. One is Apex and the second is Visual Force programming. Both of them is cloud-based, and you actually don't require to install anything at your end. And the second thing, if you ask me, sir, do we require to have any other programming languages knowledge? I will say that if you certainly know few things related to the C programming, that will help you out. But even if you don't know anything, don't worry. Don't worry about this, because Apex itself is a 70% automated code. Apex itself is a 70% automated code. How? Let me show you once again. So if you don't even have written any programming, so don't worry about that. If you try to see this, if I probably my network speed is system.c. When I write down this system is actually a class. It's a ready-made class, and these all are the methods of that. We just require to select one of the method, whatever is we require. So these all are the, see, these all are the methods. These class is already written, this method is already written, and we just require to understand ki which method we require. I require this method. Okay, so I will go with this. For example, if there's a method, if there's a class called as date class, what happens if I enter date dot? Date is a class. Who created? I have not created. Even you have not created. This is a ready-made class, right? And these are the methods of these classes. These are the methods of these classes. So this is how we are going to learn programming. So please don't make any such phobia into your mind, first of all. बिकॉज अगर आप दिमाग में ये सब भरोगे तो आपको जगह कहाँ बचेगी फिर कंसेप्ट मैं कौन सी जगह पे कंसेप्ट को घुसाऊंगा आपका दिमाग तो पूरा भरा हुआ है डरावनी डरावनी बातों से तो आपको नया कंसेप्ट कहाँ से डालोगे जब दिमाग में जगह होगा भाई घर में जगह होगा कमरे में जगह होगी तो आप नई नई चीजें रखाओगे सोफा लगाओगे टीवी लगाओगे कमरे में जगह ही नहीं तो क्या लाओगे आप सो प्लीज डोंट क्रिएट एनी फोबिया इनटू योर माइंड दैट इज वाई ये 2 हफ्ते का मैंने क्यों आपको मॉक दिया है बिकॉज आई नो एक हफ्ते में कुछ नहीं होगा आपको 2 हफ्ते चाहिए 10 दिन मॉक दे रहा हूँ मैं आपको 2 वीक का मॉक ये वीक और अगला वीक पूरा कि अगर दिमाग में जरा से भी शंका है अपेक्स को लेकर तो वो सब क्लियर हो जाएगी तो अपेक्स इटसेल्फ इज अ 70% ऑटोमेटेड कोड ये ऐसा नहीं है जावा जैसा नहीं है कि वेयर यू एक्चुअली फ्रॉम डे वन यू स्टार्ट राइटिंग द कोड नहीं ऐसा नहीं है ये बहुत अलग प्रोग्रामिंग है विजुअल फोर्स पेजेस बहुत अलग प्रोग्रामिंग है काफी विजुअल फोर्स तो काफी बाद में आएगा इनिशियली वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद द अपेक्स सो प्लीज डोंट क्रिएट एनी फोबिया रिलेटेड टू दिस इज वेरी 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 इजी लैंग्वेज anyone who have not written a single line of code anyone who has not been familiar with any of the programming language so far in his life he can also do this he can also do this ठीक है तो हम इसको स्टार्ट करेंगे लास्ट थिंग आई लाइक जस्ट वांटेड टू एंड अप विद दिस टॉपिक बाय टुमारो वी आर एक्चुअली गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद द अपेक्स प्रोग्रामिंग सो तो मैं एक छोटा सा एक बताना चाहूंगा आपको sometime this is this they ask this in the interview also probably I have written this okay मैं इसको चेंज किया है anyways sometimes they ask this in the interview one second guys this means by salesforce MVC architecture salesforce MVC architecture salesforce के बारे में जब भी हम बात करते हैं तो ये आर्किटेक्चर ये जो वर्ड है ना ये आपको 2 से 3 बार पढ़ना है इसके पहले आपने एक बार डिस्कस किया है वन सेकेंड I just दिमाग से स्लिप हो गया मेरे where we actually have discussed this probably at our initial days actually we had this discussion तो मेरे को याद आ जाएगा मैं बताता हूँ उसको मतलब ये जो वर्ड है एक्चुअली 2-3 जगह आपको पूछा जाता है कि व्हाट डज multi-tenant architecture yes multi-tenant architecture somewhere we have learned this in our initial days probably I don't know what exactly was the topic that time but yes one second so we have learned this what does it means by MVC architecture MVC bolo ya fir one more thing was multi-tenant tenant architecture one more thing एक और आने वाला है आपके सामने में तीन वर्ड्स हैं एक्चुअली मल्टी टेनेंट है MVC है ORM ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेशनशिप एंड मैपिंग तो यस दीज आर द 3 टर्मिनोलॉजीज जो आपको थोड़ा ना पता होना चाहिए इनमें से कोई ना कोई हो सकता है इंटरव्यू में पूछे they could ask you what does it means by MVC and how it is related to Salesforce what does it means by multi-tenant and how it is related to Salesforce what does it means by ORM architecture and how does it is related to Salesforce actually all these are Salesforce architectures all these are Salesforce architecture now multi-tenant is something which we already have done if you don't recall this just go and google this and what does it means by multi-tenant architecture so multi-tenancy का simple meaning होता है कि एक सर्वर पे एक से ज्यादा ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का होना हमने पढ़ा है, और वो डायग्राम अगर मैं ढूंढूं तो मुझे ढूंढना पड़ेगा, बट समवेयर वी हैव इन आवर इनिशियल डेज मल्टी टेनेंट या सर्वर इंस्टेंसेस प्रोबेबली, जब मैं ये बता रहा था दैट टाइम आई टोल्ड यू वन थिंग कि देखो एक सर्वर पे एक से ज्यादा ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होती है। इफ AP24 इज वन ऑफ द सर्वर, तो ऐसा नहीं कि AP24 पे एक ही ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रहेगा। देयर इज नो सच कंसेप्ट ऑफ डेडिकेटेड रिसोर्सेज इन द सेल्सफोर्स, ऑल थिंग इज शेयर्ड रिसोर्सेज। दो तरह के रिसोर्सेज होते हैं, डेडिकेटेड और शेयर्ड। सेल्सफोर्स में डेडिकेटेड का कंसेप्ट ही नहीं है, कोई मोनोपोली नहीं है सेल्सफोर्स में। Salesforce is actually completely shared infrastructure, shared resource based करता है। तो if AP24 is, for example, one of the server, it consists of different organization. How many organizations can be accommodated? More than 8,000 organizations can be accommodated onto a single server. That is what the concept of multi-tenant architecture. That is what the concept of multi-tenant. On a single server, more than one organizations can be accommodated. So Salesforce follow that architecture. On every server of Salesforce, there are more than 8,000 or probably 8,000 organizations can be easily accommodated. Every single server space has been consumed by multiple different organizations. All of them, organization 1 से लेके organization N तक, all of them share the same server space. This is what the thing called as multi-tenant architecture. So if someone asks you what is multi-tenant, तो आप explain करेंगे. And you also required to say कि Salesforce is purely built on multi-tenant architecture. Salesforce follow this multi-tenant architecture concept. ये है multi-tenant जो हमने काफी पहले किया. अब MVC पढ़ लेते हैं अपन. MVC क्या है? तो likewise I will say कि हाँ, Salesforce is purely built on MVC architecture. What is MVC? Model, View and Controller. मॉडल व्यू एंड कंट्रोलर. नाउ यू आर फेमिलियर विद दिस डायग्राम. एक और डायग्राम है ये वाला, ये भी काफी बार ओपन हुआ है क्लास में, है ना. सो मेनी टाइम्स, फॉर सो मेनी डिफरेंट पर्पसेस वी हैव ओपन दिस डायग्राम. एंड यू नो दिस, अभी तक जो हम पढ़ रहे थे, अभी तक हम क्या देख रहे थे कि जो फ्रंट एंड पार्ट है अपना ये वाला, वी वेयर ऑन टू दिस पार्ट. आप एक ऑब्जेक्ट बनाते हो जैसे पोजीशन नाम का, आप उसका यूजर इंटरफेस क्रिएट करते हो. एंड एज सून एज यू क्रिएट दिस यूजर इंटरफेस, what happens, a table with the same name, position object है तो position नाम से एक table database.com में automatically create होता है. और एक business logic class with the same name, यही ORM आप पढ़ने वाले हो आगे चल के, with the same name position नाम से एक class भी बन जाएगी, business logic class, which will make this bridge, है ना, a bridge of interaction between front end and the back end part. तो जब हम बहुत पहले, जब मैंने आपको शुरुआत किया था, तो आप सबको एक बात बताया था कि देखो, नॉर्मल डेवलपमेंट जो होता था दूसरी टेक्नोलॉजी में, उसमें ऐसा होता है कि फ्रंट एंड भी बनाना पड़ता है, बैक एंड भी बनाना पड़ता है, और बिजनेस लॉजिक क्लास भी लिखनी पड़ती है ताकि आप दोनों को जोड़ पाओ. सेल्सफोर्स के साथ यही तो एक बेनिफिट था कि आपने सिर्फ फ्रंट एंड बनाया, आपने ऑब्जेक्ट बनाया, हायरिंग मैनेजर, पोजीशन, कैंडिडेट, ऑथर, बुक, जो भी, आपने कौन सी क्लास लिखी आज तक, बट स्टिल यू वर एबल टू एंटर द डेटा विद दैट यूजर इंटरफेस. जब भी आप यहाँ पे कुछ एंटर करके सेव करते थे तो वो रिकॉर्ड यहाँ सेव हो जाता था, और जो कुछ भी आपने सेव कर रखा है वो सब आपको दिख रहा है. हाउ डज इट इज पॉसिबल? बिकॉज एवरीथिंग हैज बीन कंप्लीटेड इन द बैक एंड. यही तो ब्यूटी है सेल्सफोर्स की, यही तो है वो 30% ऑफ डेवलपमेंट पार्ट जो ऐसे कवर हो जाता है, 30-40% बिना कोडिंग के. हाँ, उसके आगे क्या है वो अब हम पढ़ रहे हैं. तो अब देखो, जब हमने स्टार्ट किया तो हमको ये समझ में आया कि हर एप्लीकेशन में तीन तीन अलग अलग कहना चाहिए कि तीन अलग अलग स्टेप्स नजर आ रही हैं मुझको यहाँ पे. एक तो है मेरी क्लास, और रादर एक है मेरा फ्रंट एंड पार्ट, यूआई पार्ट, यूजर इंटरफेस पार्ट. एक है मेरी क्लास और एक है डेटाबेस.com. यहाँ पे तीन अलग अलग स्टेप्स नजर आ रही, तीन अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स नजर आ रहे, तीन अलग अलग फीचर्स नजर आ रहे. ठीक है, तीन अलग अलग फीचर्स नजर आ रहे. इसी को बोला जाता है MVC. M मतलब मॉडल, योर डेटाबेस इज मॉडल. M मतलब मॉडल, डेटाबेस इज मॉडल. अभी याद कर लेना, आपके पास थ्योरी है. M के बाद आता है V मतलब यूजर इंटरफेस, व्यू. M इज मॉडल, व्यू जो दिखता है, क्या दिखता है, यूजर इंटरफेस दिखता है. एंड C इज कंट्रोलर, कंट्रोलर इज क्लास. क्लास मत बोलना इसको, MVC इज नॉट मॉडल व्यू क्लास, इट्स एक्चुअली मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर, मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर. ठीक है, तो कभी ये फुल फॉर्म, सबसे पहले आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है फुल फॉर्म याद करना. MVC stands for Model View Controller, it's not class. और what is M? What is M? M is your database. M is your database. This is something called as model. View is your user interface, जो दिखाई देता है. View मतलब दिखना. And C मतलब controller मतलब class, business logic class. This is what MVC architecture. तो ये डायग्राम कई बार अलग अलग डिस्कशंस में निकला है हमारा. और ये क्या है? दिस इज व्हाट एमवीसी आर्किटेक्चर. तो सेल्सफोर्स का एक, जैसे सेल्सफोर्स इज बिल्ट ऑन मल्टी टेनेंट बोलेगा तो भी सही है. मल्टी टेनेंट अलग पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बात कर रहे हैं. मतलब ये बता रहा है आपको कि देखिए एक सर्वर में एक से ज्यादा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्टोर होती है. देयर इज नो मोनोपोली, देयर इज नो डेडिकेटेड कंसेप्ट. एवरीथिंग इनसाइड द सेल्सफोर्स इज बेस्ड ऑन शेयर्ड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. कि भाई साहब आपको जगह बांटनी पड़ेगी दूसरे लोगों के साथ. आप अकेले सर्वर पे नहीं रह सकते. दिस इज नॉट योर ओन फ्लैट. इस फ्लैट में कम से कम 8,000 लोग रहते हैं. And you need to share the space with 8,000 different people. ये कंसेप्ट क्या है? मल्टी टेनेंट. ये कंसेप्ट क्या है? मल्टी टेनेंट. अब आप इसको झुठला तो नहीं सकते. यू नीड टू से या सेल्सफोर्स इज प्योरली बिल्ट ऑन मल्टी टेनेंट आर्किटेक्चर. ये एक अलग प्रोस्पेक्टिव, एक अलग नजरिया है बात करने का सेल्सफोर्स के बारे में. यहाँ हम प्योरली बात कर रहे हैं ईयास की, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एज अ सर्विस, ईयास की बात कर रहे हैं. What according to this we are talking about PaaS, प्लेटफॉर्म एज अ सर्विस पे बात कर रहे हैं हम. तो ऑन पैस प्रोस्पेक्टिव अगर आप दूसरा चश्मा पहनते हो, काला चश्मा, नीला चश्मा, हरा चश्मा, तो हर चश्मे से नजर अलग चीजें नजर आती है. जब आप ईयास के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखते हो, ईयास वाला चश्मा पहन के देखते हो, तो आप बोलोगे अरे सेल्सफोर्स इज बिल्ट ऑन मल्टी टेनेंट आर्किटेक्चर. जब आप पैस वाला चश्मा पहनते हो तो आप बोलोगे नहीं नहीं, सेल्सफोर्स इज बिल्ट ऑन एमवीपी आर्किटेक्चर, मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर. मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर. ऐसा ही ओआरएम पढ़ाने वाला हूं मैं. दिस इज व्हाट मॉडल, दिस इज व्हाट व्यू एंड दिस इज व्हाट कंट्रोलर. तो ये भी गलत नहीं है, ये भी सही है. हम अलग अलग प्रोस्पेक्टिव से बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. एंड देन ओआरएम क्या होता है, वो ओआरएम पे बाएगा तब बताऊंगा आपको. यही डायग्राम पे ओआरएम भी नजर आ जाएगा आपको. ठीक है. सो ये कुछ चीजें हैं बेसिकली, कुछ टर्मिनोलॉजीज हैं सेल्सफोर्स से रिलेटेड. दीज आर फ्यू ऑफ द टर्मिनोलॉजीज, राइट. तो अगर कोई पूछे कि एमवीपी क्या है तो यू नीड टू नाउ से दिस. तो अगर कोई पूछे कि मल्टी टेनेंट क्या है तब आपको बताना पड़ेगा. एंड ओआरएम क्या है तो वो भी मैं आऊंगा. So today we are ending up over here, and by tomorrow we are actually going to start with the Apex programming. ठीक है. तो Apex programming के पहले कुछ फीचर्स हम डिस्कस करेंगे, उसके बाद हम डेटा टाइप्स पढ़ेंगे. डेटा टाइप्स के भी दो टाइप होते हैं, प्रिमिटिव एंड ऑब्जेक्ट, वो कवर करेंगे. एक्चुअली काफी कुछ है इनिशियल डेज में. अभी ये 2 हफ्तों का देना, मुझे पता है ना कितनी चीजें पढ़ानी पड़ती हैं. एंड वंस यू नो द डेटा टाइप, उसके बाद में वेरिएबल्स पे लाऊंगा मैं. सी एक एक करके चीजें, काफी सारी चीजें पढ़नी है आपको बिफोर यू एक्चुअली स्टार्ट राइटिंग द कोड, अपेक्स कोड. वेरिएबल्स लाने के बाद में फिर आपको मैं ऑपरेटर्स पढ़ाऊंगा. ऑपरेटर्स पढ़ाने के बाद लूप पढ़ाऊंगा मैं आपको. उसके बाद कहीं जाके फिर वी विल स्टार्ट राइटिंग द कोड्स एंड एवरीथिंग लाइक दिस. अच्छी लंबी जर्नी है, लेकिन हाँ फायदा ये मिलेगा कि ये बड़ा ही सिस्टमैटिक अप्रोच है. अगर आपको डे 1 से यहाँ से लेके जाऊंगा ना, तो फिर आप तब बोलोगे कि नहीं मेरे को प्रोग्रामिंग से डर लगता है. लेकिन आप इस तरह से सिस्टमैटिक जाओगे ना, तो आपको कभी भी दिक्कत नहीं जाएगी. ठीक है. So we have a very systematic way of learning. Don't worry, we have so many days. Approximately 2.5 months is expected to complete this whole. So we have so many days with us. So why to hurry? है ना. तो हम systematic करेंगे और धीरे-धीरे करेंगे. चलो. So tomorrow I'm going to start with this. Let me first of all stop the recording.